Freetown Board of Selectmen's meeting to order, today being August 6th at 5:54, current time. Real quick, I'm going to go over the agenda. 5:45, executive session, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Alexandra Galls, Administrative Assistant. Pledge of Allegiance, 6 o'clock, call to order, 6 p.m. Board of Health Variance 5 High Street, 6 p.m. Board of Health Variance 82 Locust Street, 6 p.m. Discussion with South Coast Rail regarding Richmond Road, 6 p.m. Public hearing, no parking zone, Slabridge Road, High Street, Simpson Lane, and South Main Street. On the consent agenda, we have Board of Selectmen action, consent agenda, Board of Selectmen action relative, discuss, approve process for temporary no parking signs posted by town committee/boards, discuss one call system, signed 2018 state primary warrant as submitted by town clerk Jackie Brown, discuss approve request by Laura Ramsden to make regional school committee special municipal employees, discuss sign approval of exemption form for special municipal employee Laura Ramsden to be placed on file with the town clerk's office, town administrators report, Board of Health review award proposal for environmental engineers regarding issues at Highway Department, personnel, reappoint Paula Burns, Byers, to Cultural Council effective August 1st, 2018, reappoint Timothy McIntosh as part-time recording clerk for Building Committee and Police Subcommittee, sign change of status form for Brittany Normandin, Chelsea Hester, Senior Clerk, as submitted by Dorothy Stanley Ballard, effective August 18th, 2018. Appoint signed change of status form for Alicia Freer, Senior Clerk, Finance Committee, as submitted by George Grunwald, effective August 6th, 2018. Appoint signed change of status for interim building inspector / zoning enforcement agent John Santos, effective August 6th, 2018. Appoint signed change of status form for Mary Freer Kellogg as part-time health agent and submitted by Derek Macedo, effective August 6, 2018. Discussed reappoint of board member of Tax Increment Financing Board, Regional School Committee, Southeastern Regional Transit Authority Rep, Bristol County Rep. New business, dates of upcoming Board of Selectmen meetings, Monday, August 20th, September 4th, and September 17th. October 1st and October 15th, and then we have two executive sessions. Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Town Hall, Library, Highway Union, Freetown Firefighters Union, Signal Operators, and Freetown Police Union, because an open meeting law may have detrimental effect on the bargaining position of a public body, and the chair so declares. And lastly, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of a public body, and the chair so declares. Town XL Recycling versus Town of Freetown. Is anybody recording the meeting?
We can.
Anyone else?
I may record portions of it.
Okay, can you please notify us when you do?
I might too.
Okay. As long as you notify us, it's all, because everybody in the room has the ability to know that.
It's a public meeting, actually. It's nobody can dispute it anyway, correct? Just curious. Seeing the meeting hasn't really started yet.
It did. It started at 5:45. We're going
But
to
it starts at
executive.
6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock.
5:45 is the executive session, and then the main agenda starts at 6 o'clock. Anybody else recording the meeting? Okay. And I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Ally Galls, Administrative Assistant.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Chico?
Yes.
Mr. Joes, yes. We're in executive session. We've called the meeting to order. First on the agenda is two Board of Health variances. I will turn it over to the Board of Health Chair.
So Derek, you want to come on up? state your name for the record, please?
For the record, now, Zager, PZF Consulting Engineers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're here today to discuss what?
Variance, this one was,
5 High Street first.
Yeah.
this one was a well setback. And is this the groundwater?
Basically what we have here is the Board of Health has a bylaw that states that they want 20 feet from a well to a septic system, to a property line, I
I was
apologize.
gonna say it should be 100 feet.
Yeah, no, 20 feet. We are asking for 10 feet. If anybody's aware of where this property is, it's a small little lot, really long, you can see it here. The existing house, and it slopes way up from the road to the back of the property. We're proposing a new well, along with this septic upgrade that we're doing. The well is currently located underneath the deck. We cannot get, we're supposed to be 50 feet from the minimum from the tanks, and we're supposed to be a minimum of 100 feet from the septic, from the leaching field. In order to do this, to get that 10 feet, to get that 20 feet, we would have had to have ripped down this deck, this porch here, and we still wouldn't have gotten 50 feet from the tanks. So what we did was we figured there's no real health risk when you put from a tank to a property line. From a well to a property line. So that's why we're asking for it. It's just ease of access for the well driller to get in there. It gives them more room to work with. We're also asking for another, what's called a local upgrade. This is from Title V. As I said, the back of the property really slopes up. You can see the contouring here. So what happens is where the existing plumbing comes out of the house, when you bring those tanks out and you get your slope, the tanks are gonna be more than 3 feet in the ground. Title V doesn't allow more than 3 feet for new construction, but where this is a repair, we're allowed to go up to 6 feet in the ground, by using H20 tanks that are loaded for traffic loading. So it's not in the water table, there's no water table issues or anything like that. It's just for the constructability of the, where the plumbing comes out and being able to make everything work. So, we are meeting all the other setbacks. It's over 100 feet from the well to the leaching field, which is your main concern. It's over 50 feet from the well to the tanks. We meet all the other requirements per Title V. We did a perk test out there, and again, if we were to put this 20 feet away, this would push this tank 10 further feet up, which would then make it more than 6 feet in the ground, which we're not really allowed to do. So health-wise, this 10-foot property line, there's really no health issue there. It's just a bylaw that was made, I think, just to try to get if you could. But in a situation like this, I think it's warranted to try to get it to 10 feet.
Go ahead.
If I may, what's the state statute on?
There's actually not.
There is no state statute.
Charlie, any questions?
No.
Derek, your recommendation, do you have any other questions?
Just to confirm, you are more than 100 feet to your field and 50 feet to your tank?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I have the circles on the plan here. There's circles, and you can see that we're over 50 feet in the circle here. We're way over 100 with the leaching field.
Thank you.
We're pumping way up.
Yeah. Is that what it is? Oh, okay.
Before I forget as well.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry about
I
that.
should have asked that first. Travis Bowie, Marcus Baptiste, Robert and Deborah Wilbur, Leon Cudworth Jr., Tamara and Michael Coogan,
Yep,
Brian,
I do.
oh, sorry, hi, and Mary and Richard Brown. Do you have any questions?
I do, I can't see what he's describing.
Okay, come on
so-
up.
How's everybody doing?
Good, how are you?
There you go.
All right, so I know that this property, at the time, there were two brothers, correct? Everybody knows this, Sean and Bob knows that. There was two brothers that lived here, and a house in the back. So this house was basically a postage stamp, and there was another house here, and the two brothers shared a well, shared a septic. And this house was torn down in the back, and another house was put up. He had to purchase additional property in order to put that house up. So now they're trying to pigeonhole this house, which is existing and grandfathered in, and put a septic system in. it doesn't really require, I mean, it doesn't conform to town requirements. I know you asked about state statutes, but the town requirements are in place for a reason. I know Mrs. Bowie asked about cutting her lot, which is approximately 2.5 acres, and was told that she can't fit another house on that property. So now this is less than a 1/4 of an acre parcel, and they're trying to make this house work when it didn't work unless the other piece of property was there. They've now split that property off and built an additional house, so basically they're trying to get 2 for 1 out of this property, and it really doesn't work. And I say that the town restrictions are in place, 20 feet back, they're trying to waive that, they're trying to waive the depth requirements. So, again, I can't see what he's talking about, but now, so this septic is gonna be right behind my property?
Alongside it, by the looks of it.
Yeah, so my shed is here. My garage is here, my property is here. So, this is right along the side of my property. So if there's an issue here or something happens, it's gonna affect my property. So, I really can't say I'm in favor of waiving all the town requirements and allowing this to happen.
I mean, as far as, I understand the concerns, but, I mean, realistically, they have the right to upgrade their septic system. It's a, you know, right now, it's a cesspool that's in failure. So the client is trying to upgrade it. When we say that, there was actually 2 houses on, you know, 2 houses here. There was a house on each property, so the gentleman that purchased this piece, he only purchased it, he actually could have made it work without purchasing that property. He could have fit it. He just chose to purchase more property, which he has the right to do, in order to make it more usable. So it made it, this here, the 10-foot setback, there's no health issue when you talk about an upgrade. And again, the separation from the cover over the tank, we're doing monolithic tanks, so there's no seams, H20. If there's any failure, if there was to be a failure, which anybody could have a failure on their septic system, if there's a failure, it's going to go down the hill. It's not gonna go sideways. Water, it doesn't go sideways. It's gonna go perpendicular
That
down
water
the hill.
goes right downhill to my property, that property goes right downhill to the backside of my property. And I would say, the individual that purchased this house, purchased this property, and purchased additional property to make this work. He could have just as easily, as he just alluded to, bought additional property to do what he had to do without any variances. He chose not to do that, now they're trying to get this to work on a piece of property that doesn't work to town requirements.
I agree with one statement, but that if the same person had bought it all, but the same person didn't buy it all.
Okay, so who owns this property?
Monty Seif,
Okay, and who owns
Marcus
this?
Baptiste.
Okay, so when this individual purchased more property, this individual has no relationship with this individual?
That's correct.
Okay, so now this individual bought this property knowing it didn't conform or couldn't get a system in there, and you're here asking for a variance.
Well, it's not that they didn't know, I mean, I do types of septic systems like this all the time where, I mean, a lot tighter situations, on the ponds, you have ones that are asking for a lot more variances. The board's granted, systems with more variances than this. But these are, in, health issues wise, they're very, very minimal. There's really no impact. The only reason why they're being notified is because, that abutters are being notified is because it's an actual variance, because of the bylaw. Other than that, Title V would not require us to ask for, to notify the abutters.
If you have the property, but you don't have the property.
We do have the property. We can do 20 feet. We're trying to make it.
You're asking this board to override a town variance to allow you to do that, so you don't have the property.
No, we do.
Okay, so then why are you here?
We have the property, but we cannot get the tanks to work.
Okay, so it doesn't work on the property that you have.
We can make it work if you.
Okay, so then let's make it work and conform to town requirements.
But then we would
I
have to.
object to the granting of the variance.
Then we would have to put it further into the ground, which is not the intent of Title V. This does not have a health impact on the neighbor, the well.
You're asking
In my
for two
opinion.
variances, correct?
One.
One for the well and one for the,
One for the depth of the tanks.
two variances, two.
One variance, one local upgrade.
Okay, so I object to both.
Derek, you visited the property, and I know that you said you recommended that, to the board. Do you have anything to add?
As far as who owns what property and how it could have been handled, I don't have a say on that. With what we're dealing with for property and for setbacks, this was probably gonna be the least impactful as far as a house standpoint. So that's why I recommended with this. Because the setback on the well compared to depth into the ground with the tank, and I'd rather I'd rather go this route, from my standpoint.
Okay.
Is there someone living in the house now, or is it vacant?
It's a rental,
Okay, is it occupied though?
yes,
Okay. So the system's currently being used?
that's correct,
And it's in failure,
that's correct,
which could have more of a detrimental effect.
absolutely.
Charlie, any questions?
I don't like what I think has happened here, but that's not beside the issue. But to Mr. Coogan's whole point, I understand the point, Michael, but if we go deeper, we're getting closer to groundwater. That's my concern here. I understand we know a little bit more about the history of the place than is being committed here. But that's where we have to weigh. I understand the point that your feelings, but I'm thinking of groundwater and actually to the neighbors, to yourself, and to High Street. So I would say that to keep it above the ground.
Mm-hmm. So-
I understand.
So what is the minimum lot size here in town now?
70,000 square.
Right, and what is that lot?
12,000 square feet.
So the person that purchased the property knew that it was inferior when they purchased the property. It's been inferior. The renters that have been living there, it's been a new renter every 6 months. There's not been anybody there on a consistent basis. They stay for a period of time. Different issues with that. I can't do anything about that. But whoever purchased that property knew what they were buying when they purchased the property. It does not conform to the minimum requirements of a new lot in town. It does not conform to the variances and ordinances on record of the town. And I'm not in favor of you overriding, they're there for a reason. And I said to you, the woman across the street, there's approximately 2.5 acres, was told she couldn't put a second house on that property. So now we're gonna take a 10,000 square foot lot and throw all the variances out the window and the setbacks and everything that we have to conform to as a new property owner and say, we're gonna let this go. The property is what it is. It probably shouldn't have been habitated. They had the opportunity to buy the property on the side of them. They didn't. I don't know what to tell you. Again, I object to that.
The only problem I have is we have areas in town that were built prior to subdivision control, prior to 1960s, Simpson Lane, 1970s, I should say, Simpson Lane, Sonnet Bay Shores. There's different areas, and none of those are conforming. They're all 10,000 square foot lots. So if we couldn't give variances because they're non-conforming, then we would have to evict or wait until they fail, large areas, densely populated large areas of town. So that's what the variance process is for. I know exactly what you're saying, that other lot they bought and they added land to it and all that. But this is a house that's currently in habitation. If it was left vacant for a period of time, I might agree with Mike even more, because they knew when they bought it, it was a vacant house. But this house there's inhabitants in it right now, is what you're testifying to. So we have a house in failure that has a septic system that's people are living in.
The last individual just moved out, and there was periods of time throughout the last 2 years that it was empty for months at a time. So it's not a constant person. I don't think there's anybody living there right now. The person that was there moved out July 30th.
I mean, realistically, the Board of Health is supposed to be looking for you're supposed to be looking at the safety and well-being of the public. So realistically, even if somebody's living there or not, my client informed me that, and actually I had, to get into the home, I had to talk to the current renter to get in, to be able to look at the plumbing, things of that nature. Because we did look at raising the plumbing, but we don't have the room to raise the plumbing, because if I could have raised the plumbing, then the 3-foot separation, 3 foot of cover would have been a moot point. I would have been able to get around it, but I just unfortunately couldn't. I cannot. The only way to do it would be to rip down the house and build a new house and raise it up. And I don't think that's not the intent of Title V.
I heard the argument that we'd have to tear a deck down in order for a true well truck to get in there. That's what's dictating the variance?
And to get the tanks, to keep the tanks as far down the slope as possible. because like I said, I can't raise that plumbing, so I don't have room to raise the plumbing. I'm working with an existing condition, so,
Mr. Zager,
yes.
the deck, the rear deck, I was under the impression it was because of the existing well. That it was more a well issue. Just run that by me again.
That was the statement that he made.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a well underneath the existing deck in the rear of the property. That's being decommissioned.
Right.
That's going to be decommissioned. Because if we kept this existing well, then what would happen is these tanks would have to be pushed up the hill even further. They would be probably 15, 20 feet in the ground because of the ground. So my client, per my request and consulting, stated that we should really think about doing a new well. Plus, it's been really, that well's probably in failure with it being so close to an existing septic system that's been in failure. So my recommendation was to put a new well in, which he agreed to. And again, we're only doing it to try to make it a better situation. Getting it further away from the components of the septic system, that's the intent. So. And again, Title V has there's no regulation on a setback from a well to a property line. You do whatever you have to do to try to make it work with the components. The town can have its own, again, there's towns that have 10-foot setbacks, 20-foot setbacks, more. But that, again, we meet the requirement as far as the state requirement, but we don't meet the town standard.
So you're saying if you don't move the well, if you leave the well where it is now, you'd still be coming for a variance because your box would now be that much more deeper and you'd be more than 3 feet of cover, 6 feet of cover for an
I'd be
existing.
more than 6 feet of cover. I'd probably be about, I would be at least 12 to 14 feet of cover.
So you'd still be here for a variance then?
Absolutely. And now we're putting in a new well.
Anything else?
And the other issue is that there's ledge on this. I'm sure, I've done a bunch of digging over here, there's ledge, so I don't even know if we can get down that deep. So, you know, trying to keep everything up as high as we can is also important as well. And as we stated at the water table, I did not hit any water table, but what happens is if it's gonna hit the ledge, we didn't encounter any ledge while we were there, but the deeper we put it, the more chance it's going to have hit the water, the surface water going down that ledge, or the groundwater going down that ledge and getting into the tanks. So this, to me, is the best situation that we can come up with.
All right, you guys all set?
Okay.
All right, do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to allow the variance.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye. How many bedrooms is that?
It is 3.
There's gonna be a deed restriction stated for 3
It has to
bedrooms.
be a deed restriction, yes. Absolutely.
Okay, next. 82 Locust Street.
Again, for the record, now Zager from Zenith Consulting Engineers, another septic upgrade. And again, a septic system, it's a tank into a leaching pit that's in the water table, currently in the water table and fairly bubbling. It's actually bubbling out of the ground currently. So this is on Locust Street. The 2 variances, it's not what, these aren't variances, is these, we completely meet the town standards where this is from Title V. So we didn't have to notify any butters because there's no butters affected. We're asking for two different local upgrades. One was a sieve analysis, because when Derek and I went out to do the perk test, it was too wet. Water was pouring in at like 4 feet. So in lieu of that, what we do is a sieve analysis, and we bring a sample to a lab and we test it, and that's how we size the septic system. So that's one, and then we're also asking for a separation to the water table with the leaching field. And the reason for that is to eliminate a pump system. As you know, doing pump systems is, there's more mechanical parts, there's more issues. To try to get things gravity is what we really try to do. So we have this long run here, we put in the leaching field in the rear of the property as far away as we can. And getting it gravity fed is always the intent. So I've done this in the past with the board, asked for this variant, this local upgrade, and have been granted it. It still meets the Title V under a repair or an upgrade condition allows this, per the board's, granting.
Questions?
Yeah, 4-3.
4-3, that's it. All right, questions?
No, I'd rather see something like this than a pump, the less mechanical stuff the better, so. If it was maybe a bigger depth, then it'd be a different story, but I'm good with this.
And your recommendation to the board?
To approve.
Thank you. Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Good night.
Here you go. Here.
Next on the agenda is South Coast Rail.
Wondering what would be most convenient for
Yeah,
the boards.
how do
to
you
use
wanna look
those.
at these boards, guys?
You're pretty good where you are there.
Are they
especially.
okay? Okay.
The one behind might be a
Well,
little further.
that's the
We'll move
technical,
that
that's
out.
after me.
Okay.
All right, so on this thumb drive is this PowerPoint presentation. I only have 3 copies, but I think you can walk through this with me. This one's mine. It's a cheat sheet.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome. And then we have also, when we get to your discussion, the technical discussion, these are gonna be of interest to you as well. You've seen some of this already, but here you go. So first of all, I'm Jean Fox, Mass DOT South Coast Rail Project Manager. Thanks for having us in. We've been meeting with David and a lot of the public safety folks on the most difficult grade crossing in the entire project, which happens to be in my town. But it's great. I want to introduce first 2 members of my team. So I have a consulting team, a joint venture team, VHB and HNTB. I have Rick Carey from VHB, who's been working on this most of his professional career. And I have Jeff Kellner, HNTB, who is my technical guru on this grade crossing. But I thought what we could do first is just kind of a quick thumbnail sketch of where the project is now. Most of you know that it came in a few years ago at $3-point-something billion to go this route up, connect to Stoughton this way. We were told that's too much money and too long, and the region has waited long enough for this train. You gotta come up with something that's gonna work a little faster, a little quicker, and a lot less money, that can be feasibly financed. So the team has worked diligently for the last couple of years, coming up with what we're calling Phase 1, which builds what we call the Southern Triangle, from Taunton down to Fall River and New Bedford. But instead of going straight up, we're going to cut across this 7-mile stretch of the Middleborough Secondary and connect to the existing Middleborough service and head into South Station. Now, there are a few changes here from the Stoughton Straight route, which is an electric route, by the way. This would be diesel service. The Lakeville station will have to shift a little bit, otherwise it would be a backwards or reverse move, which requires a brake check. The engineer gets out of the train, walks the length of the train, checks everything, gets back in, you sit there for 15 minutes, really not fun. So we're shifting that. The Freetown station remains where it is, which is near the mini storage. Fall River Depot is the downtown-ish station. The Battleship Cove is not for Phase 1. Then we're doing Kings Highway and the Whales Tooth in New Bedford. We have 2 layovers, one in New Bedford at Wamsutta and one at Weaver's Cove East in Fall River. So we're excited because we're really pushing to final design on all of this, because the goal is to have this thing implemented, revenue service, by the end of 2022. Long ride. You know, with the electric train, which can go faster into the station and faster out of the station, you'd shave some minutes off. But an 1.5-hour ride is what we're estimating right now, still working on operations modeling to see if we can shave any of that off. But as a poor victim of Route 24 every day, I'll take an 1.5 hours on a train. It's much safer than Route 24, and it's much more reliable, usually. I'm excited about that. So I think, yeah, I've gone through all this. One of the things we're doing with phase one is we are obligated by phasing to continue the design engineering on the Stoughton Strait. We have phased it, we have the concurrence of our partners, the Army Corps of Engineers, to do the phasing. For us, the big news is, all of this being built now, we can continue going through this exercise with the understanding, which we always knew would be far more complex. You're going through the Hockomock Swamp. We needed, I don't know, a slew of variances to get through there. We had some local community discord, shall I say. So those are greater challenges to get through this area, where this is all established here as commuter rail. This is all established here as existing freight. So I told you about the stations. I'll tell you the Freetown station so far, we have 107 spaces, but we have room for expansion. The ridership showed less than that. I think we're in good shape. We do expect some of the Fall River people will head north. Turn my page here. Okay, so just by way of review of how we've met with the town, we met April to May 2016. We discussed on April 12th the closure of I'm now at the grade crossing from hell, Richmond Road. We've met with the town administrator, fire chief, highway, police, planning, conservation. We've had them all in the room. We've been back 5 times to talk about alternatives. And we looked at completely closing Forge, where we put that new bridge back in 2010 after the floods. We had several alternatives for that. And then at your suggestion, I believe it was yours, to look at a one-way option for Forge Road, which could work. We have line of sight issues at this grade crossing. We have curvature issues at this grade crossing. And one of our options was so horrible because it really meant totally realigning the road, putting up these giant walls, which in my mind are canvases for the next artist in town, taking a lot of properties, not what we want to do. We want to keep it so that it's a safe alignment, and there's a visual aspect so that when the trains are coming, people see them and they stop. And also for the school buses. So we know the school buses have stressed over this particular intersection because they have to come out and stop on the tracks right now, and that's not something they enjoy doing. So at this point, I'm going to have Jeff come up and do the technical, and if anyone has questions on the overall phase one, I'm happy to answer them. But this is the meat of Richmond Road.
Thanks, Jean.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Board, for hearing us today. So this is the design alternative that was presented back in 2016, calling it the S-curve design. Give you general ideas to where you are looking here. North is the top side of the sheet, south is the bottom side of the sheet. You've got Forge Pond over here, and the Sonnet River crosses through the recently reconstructed bridge and culvert here at Forge Road, running east to west. So with this design alternative, we had a significant shift of Richmond Road and the Richmond Road and Forge Road intersection to the south in order to provide space for school buses to take the turn and stop before the tracks. And that would allow traffic to continue flow along Richmond Road, as well as provide a little better sight distance looking down the tracks. Currently the trains, the freight rail are running at 10 miles per hour. Once commuter rail service is running through here, they'll be up to about 70 miles per hour. So sight distance is very important for buses looking here. Another part of that shift is the S-curve design that you see here to try and tie back into the existing roadway once you go further west. That leads to a lot of property impacts, as you can see along here and here. And the intersection shift to the south also leads to significant impacts with walls along Forge Road. That's a relatively steep roadway, roughly about 9% grade. Once you shift that intersection into that roadway, you got to cut into the road, and that creates issues with some of the driveways that are there, as well as providing 6-foot walls in order to support each side of the road there. The walls that would be necessary along Richmond Road in this old design would be up to 20 feet to provide space for a signal house that would be located right here. So as you can see, there's a lot of impacts with this design that was done back in 2016 and presented to the MBTA as part of the 30% submittal. You can also see that there's a driveway that would be impacted over here. That remains in any design that we could come up with, either way, because you're going to have to push that driveway access point outside of the width of the crossing. Because the tracks cross here, the roadway crosses through here. You cannot have a driveway access within the limits of those signals, otherwise they can get trapped and become a concern for safety. As Gene mentioned, we've been discussing with the town officials for a new alternative. This is the alternative where Forge Road is converted into a one-way road from the intersection of Richmond Road and Forge Road here, and roughly ending as a one-way road at the limit of the culvert here, or the walls. So Forge Road would remain as a two-way road from this point north all the way to Kenneth Drive and Locust Street, with the option for Forge Road to turn into a two-way temporary condition should there be an issue with the Locust Street Bridge. So as you can see, that red pavement is just more or less a raised, stamped concrete so that vehicles can travel in the northbound direction. The alignment for Richmond Road here generally follows the existing alignment of the road. With a little bit of widening, there'll be 10-foot wide medians placed on either side of the rail crossing to provide space for some of the signal equipment. There are still some walls involved in this design, but they're far shorter and a lot less in height. I think it's 20 feet for the other alternative versus 14 feet for this alternative. And that's right at the point here. So generally, these walls are roughly 3 feet, 4 feet, and minimal in length. You can see there's still the impact here on these driveways to push the access point outside of the grade crossing as well. Forge Road, seeing how we're not shifting the intersection to the south, doesn't lead to a significant cut. So there's no need to put any new retaining walls in there. You can maintain the stone walls that are there with a little bit of grading that'll happen there. This image just gives you a comparison between the two alternatives. The one-way Forge Road alternative generally follows the existing alignment of Richmond Road that you can see here. And this gives you an idea just how far Richmond Road would have to push to the south and the limit of impacts all the way down towards Howland Road should we stick with that alternative and maintain two-way traffic. So the three key takeaways from this are safety for the buses. Sight distance, like Gene had mentioned, is a significant issue when you're trying to look back at the tracks. Aesthetics for the community, wall heights are going to be a lot shorter, as well as not as long. And property impacts will not be as significant with this design alternative.
And the other point I just want to make on this is that the goal is always to try to get the gates as close together as you can.
Certainly.
So you don't have the queuing go on forever. This alternative gets them as close as we can. We still have to put the medians in. I just wanted to add that.
Yep. That was the technical portion.
Yes, yes, and thank you for that. And that's in your graphics that you have, all of that, and they're also included in the PowerPoint. So really, I guess, you know, we wanted to update you on the project. We wanted to demonstrate to you the machinations we've gone through with this particular grade crossing. We are very grateful for everybody who sat down with us and poured over this material for months on end, because I think we made good progress, and I think we can make this work. And as somebody who put that bridge in, I feel sort of some ownership too. So I'd like to see it stay, but I also understand that we have to be cognizant of the fact that you've got to always have public safety access. You can't cut it off, and that was absolutely the way the Forge Road closure was definitely not encouraged. So we went back to the drawing board. So if you have any questions, I have the experts here.
I have a quick question. You alluded to one-way for Forge Road.
Yep.
You said north. Is that going to be one-way north or no one-way south?
Sorry, one-way south.
It's south.
Okay.
It is south.
I wanted to-
Good
Eliminating
question.
that turn
Okay.
from Richmond Road westbound to northbound. That's the one that we want to eliminate for this situation.
Right, because
Safety.
that's the one you said caused the queue problems,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it is south.
Yes,
All right.
sorry.
Yep.
And the only other question I had, the reason why the impact is getting so much larger is because the speed of the trains is much faster? And what does that cause? That
It's
causes,
not really the speed of the trains. It's really, the only way to make the road work, make all the clearances we have to have by state regs and FRA regs is really,
Is the intersection non-conforming now, is that what you're
oh,
saying?
totally.
Okay.
Right, there's no sight distance. When a bus
Nothing.
wants to take that right turn up Ford Road,
They're
they're
on the
looking back at
tracks.
kids rather than looking at the,
Right.
It's
at
not
the
good.
approaching trains.
Right.
But the trains being 10 miles, probably not as much of a concern as when they come through.
I didn't know if it changes your
Faster
gates,
speed.
the faster the trains go, the further, it changes your gate distance.
That would impact timing for
It's just
delays
timing.
for signals.
Just
Ideally, you don't want to gate down more than 45 seconds, and the closer they are, the better you're gonna hit that. Sometimes it's shorter, but, you know, peak period trains, so we're gonna have 3 coming up from Fall River and 3 coming up from New Bedford, in the morning and in the afternoon. So, and they trump freight. Freight has to wait for the commuter rail, right? So, which will still go much more slowly, even though we're upgrading all the tracks, and it's gonna have the positive train control, if anyone's concerned about that. That's included in what we're doing in our signaling package. But we're gonna have trains going through here peak periods, same time school buses are going, same time people are getting to work. We absolutely had to have it as safe as possible. And I actually commend the team for figuring this out, because it was 2 years. I went back to railroad operations, I don't know how many times, and they said, don't come back again until you're satisfied that you have a plan that'll work. That was a slap in the face, but so we haven't been back with this yet.
So, sorry, Carlton, Gary, everybody's on board with this option right here?
So I don't have in writing that they're on board with it, but to certainly encourage this, and that's what I'm looking for, some sort of affirmation that this is acceptable for the town. And I think you had talked to am I right about that, or am I making it
I
up?
was there, meeting in, one of the meetings in, I think it was the end of May.
May,
Yeah, it was
Okay, all
before
right.
June.
okay,
The
Yeah.
general consensus was that the team from DOT worked based on the, suggestions and recommendations of our public safety officials, and Bob, chimed in with his suggestion regarding the one-way on Forge, and it seems that we come together with, a plan that it will actually work and serve the public and protect the public safety, so.
Before that, they were talking pretty much closure and
Yeah.
other options if they did closure.
closure
We went
and
to 3
horrible
meetings
things
closed.
happening to the roadway and land takings, it's such an impact in that area.
I think you came to us a year and a half ago about closure, and it really wasn't an option
Yeah,
that we
no.
wanted to entertain.
No, and we understand that. I mean, we knew that that could be an issue, and that's why we came as early as we did in the planning phase, to get the impact and the feedback from the people who know it and who are gonna have to use it. So it is the public safety piece that was most compelling when we were looking at this. And I know about the buses stopping on the tracks, that was a nightmare and a half. So that will go away. Then we'll have these trains going through, connecting Fall River and New Bedford to South Station by the end of 2022.
Charlie, any questions?
Now, coming down
Here, Jeff.
Ford from this way, there's no restriction on turning either way, correct? That's
Not on
No,
Ford.
you
what
don't
you see
turn
here, what you
right,
see
you
here
turn
is
left.
actually the island, the left, no left turn, that's just the islands, right?
Right.
So,
You
yeah,
can still make
that's
all the
those
turning movements,
medians, that's
except for
right.
the- You wouldn't be able to make the through movement.
Right.
That's the only one that would be eliminated, heading Forge Road in that direction.
Is there gonna be any work on reducing?
Oh, that slope on
the
Ford,
slope?
we talked about that too.
We did do a little bit to round that. We're gonna sign it for low clearance vehicles
Mhm.
on the approach from Kenneth Drive and Vocus Street. So we determined that we can round that a little bit and minimize impacts to the existing walls and culvert there, because we didn't want to touch that, having recently been reconstructed in 2012. So that will be rounded slightly as it approaches the tracks.
And you should know we have talked to some of the property owners in there. And then we've also been receiving inquiries from some of the property owners. So we're being as responsive as we know how to be.
There has been some issues with hangups there in the past.
Oh, yeah.
Where-
Yeah.
where
Even when they were doing
low
the new
beds-
bridge,
Right,
they
low
got
beds
stuck.
got hung up.
Oh, yeah.
I guess it lifts, when it hangs up, lifts the tractor's drive axles off the ground, and now it can't move and
Get pinned
you're right on the
Not a
tracks.
good thing.
Becomes a seesaw, right?
Right.
So we do our best to try and eliminate that. And
So-
put proper signage to make sure that people are aware of that. Sorry.
No, so are you meeting with conservation and everybody else one more time, or are you all done with everybody?
Well, I'm actually looking for you to give me feedback. I'm happy to sit down with people whenever they want.
No,
I think that they're content with this. I just needed to know from you guys that this works for you, so we can continue to get to 100% and go back to railroad operations and not get slapped.
so like we do when we have a new project come into town, people sign off on it. I'd like to see a sign off on that.
That's a great
Maybe
idea.
Conservation, police, fire, so then we have one document that says, you know, that they, not, sort of not signed off on it completely, but just that, yes, this is the direction that we like and this is what we'd like to see
That's a
more of.
fantastic idea.
So I think that,
Yeah.
for me, I don't know if that's all right with you guys,
Yes,
but I
absolutely.
think then that way we have one document, we're good to go.
And
Yeah.
you're gonna generate that. We don't have to do anything on that,
No,
right?
we'll have David generate it.
I can do it.
Perfect.
Okay.
Why don't we make that as a motion to reach out to the different department heads and have them,
I'll make that as a motion.
motion made, second, any discussion on the motion?
I have a question. I think a train coming through the town at 70 miles an hour is a horrible idea. The town people get to vote on this?
No. This has been out there for 25-plus years,
Well,
this connection.
people are gonna probably die.
Well, there are trains that go through an awful lot of towns
Yeah,
in the
Boston.
Commonwealth. No, not Boston, Lowell, Lawrence, Fitchburg, Worcester, all over, and they go through the towns on the way and in between. That's why this grade crossing discussion is so critically important. The MBTA actually has an incredibly good track record. There are things we do in the schools, for example, Operation Lifesaver. We go in and we remind students, who then take the information home, because parents don't always listen, but you're not supposed to walk on the tracks, ever. You need to understand what those signs mean, and when the gates come down, skirting around them is a bad idea, it's a lethal idea. So we work with towns, we work with communities. I feel very comfortable that the MBTA has a good handle on how to make a grade crossing safe, and commuter rail just can't chug along at freight speeds.
Are you gonna have open sessions for people to voice their concerns?
Interesting you
so
asked that question, yes.
Gary can come and,
I'm gonna do, I think in the fall, I'm looking to do just a public meeting, just to explain the whole thing, you know, faster than the 5 cent here it is thing. But talk about some of the concerns you might have going forward, and certainly, like I said, people have contacted us left, right, and center, but I think having a public forum is a great idea, and I'm looking to do that maybe October-ish. I kinda wanna get through the summer and the fall, and maybe October-ish, I could work with David and we could find a venue, pick a date, and invite the public to come.
Have you looked at the wall that Excel put up along your railroad tracks?
Yeah, I've been on the high rail back there.
The 3 containers high?
Mhm.
You're gonna go by there at 70 miles an hour?
They might fall off.
The vibration of that thing,
Well, you're the technical guys.
Yeah.
Rick, what are we doing?
Well,
You
I'm not
didn't do the
familiar,
high rail.
yeah, I'm
You
not
did not do
familiar
the high
exactly
rail.
what where you're talking about, but there's new rail that'll be going down, that adds more stone ballast, and it's
Yeah, they were
continuously
saying,
welded rail, so
they
it's
dug
not,
into that when they put their wall up.
yeah, and
Oh, they dug into the ballast?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll have to fix that.
yeah, and using continuously welded rail, which doesn't have the click-clack of, so it's a lot smoother, but whatever they might have removed from the stone ballast, we have to reconstruct everything to get it up to current
So if you
standards
take
anyway.
3 containers high, and if they come down like they did before, they'll be on your railroad tracks.
Well, that's clearly something we'll have to be looking
Yeah.
at, because
And checking people's foundations. If they get cracks, I mean, you gotta be responsible, right?
we're a little outside the
Yeah,
scope for this
I-
thing. That's a great question for October, don't forget that. So, all right, I have a motion made and seconded, any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming in. We look forward to having a public meeting at some point,
Yeah,
so
we'll do that.
there is people have questions in the community,
Of
so.
course they do, and it's been a long time since we've actually been out with this. We did.
And before we get too far down the thing and everything's definitely in stone, we'd like to have some comments, so
Absolutely.
we can voice that concern.
Okay.
I think it's,
Seems
That
like
was
we
the
have.
one. Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda is public hearing, no parking zone, Slabridge Road, High Street, Simpson Lane, and South Main Street. Mr. Sullivan, you asked this to be put on?
Yes. just that we have these parking areas in town already. We had never had the lawful development for the parking areas, and that was my concern. And so, on the letter from Mr. Macumber on the 4 locations in question, those are the distances. I would make an amendment on High Street because it's a bit of confusion with what's actually there, and add 425 feet on the west side and 75 feet on the east side, instead of the 425 by code, because the signs are not there. The sign right at the arc of the intersection that says no parking here to corners, which is 75 feet.
All right, so I'll speak to what you're alluding to. We have a letter from the Highway Surveyor, Mr. Charles Sullivan, the Honorable Board of, yeah. From sincerely, Mr. Charles Macumber, to the Honorable Board of Selectmen, at the request of your board, I took measures of the no parking areas that are presently signed at the 4 locations in the Sonnet. Measurements are as follows: High Street, both sides, from South Main Street, 425 feet. Now you're saying that's 425 on the west side, but it's only 75 on the east?
Right.
Okay. Simpson Lane, north side, from South Main Street to a point opposite Nelson Lane, 450 feet. Slabridge Road, south side, from a point of 450 feet west of Payne Road, heading east, 1,200 feet. And South Main Street west, from the lane south to a point opposite High Street, 350 feet. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to call me. Did I read it wrong?
No, I think that it was inadvertently typed up, it should be north,
So from the lane north
yes,
to the point opposite High Street?
yes.
Yeah, that would, no, south.
South,
It's
yeah,
definitely to
south.
the south.
Yeah, it's south. It's
The
on
lane is
it's on the
right
west
across from
side.
Simpson Lane? And it would run south
Yeah,
to High
but that
Street?
would be the church side. You
Right.
don't want no parking on the church side. You want no parking on the opposite side, so it'd be the north side that you want.
What's currently signed?
It's the opposite. It's across from the church.
You know
Right.
what, actually, yeah, that is true. It's,
So it's
it
north.
should be
and
the,
whatnot.
So,
it should be the east side.
so it's the
of
east
South.
side of South Main Street,
Oh.
from the lane north, I'm sorry, from High Street north to the lane.
Yes. But on the west side, there is a distance on the north,
I'm confused.
I'm
yeah,
confused too.
yeah, well, we're all confused.
Is there a sign though? Is it?
There's a sign on the west side of High Street at the north driveway of St. Bernard's. It takes him maybe about 75 feet, so that no one parks too close, so they
Why
can't
don't we-
make the arc.
Why don't we
So-
do the first 3
Well,
and clarify that last one?
The
well,
last 2 with Chuck?
well, the last one, what we could add, the last issue, we could actually just amend west, east side of South Main Street. And that would be the distance, 350 feet.
So it's gonna be
it's
South
just
Main
basic.
Street, east side,
East
Yes.
side.
from the lane north to a point opposite High Street, 350 feet?
From the
It's
lane
actually
south.
gonna have to be
Right.
adjacent High Street, because that's the side High
Right.
Street's on.
Yeah.
Excuse me, could you clarify, is the church on the east side or the west side?
West
side.
I'm thinking north and south, not east and west.
The
but-
church is on the west side.
No.
West side of South
North
Main Street.
Right, it's
South Main
kinda-
Street, South Main Street
But
runs north.
I haven't,
and south.
I don't know if I can comment now, or if you need to finish your discussion. There is a sidewalk. Now, I don't know if that is a sidewalk or it's just asphalt. There appears to be a sidewalk on what I would call the north side, the church side of the road,
That would be the west side.
the west side. Cars park on the sidewalk. If you're in a wheelchair, now I realize there's handicap parking at the church, but if you're in a wheelchair and you show up late, and you gotta park out in the street, you gotta wheel yourself up the middle of the road because everybody's parked on the sidewalk. Quite frankly,
Can
I
we
have a
hold that for
problem
1
with
minute? I
that.
just wanna nail down the actual things and we'll come right back to you.
but
You'll be the
that's,
first one.
that's
I
to
know what
the-
you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Absolutely. Let's nail down where we're actually talking about before we go back to that discussion, because he does have a valid point.
You know,
So South Main Street, east side,
East side.
East side,
from the lane,
north.
north to a point adjacent to High Street,
Correct.
350 feet, okay.
No,
No?
from the lane, from the lane. Okay.
Well, actually from Simpson Lane now.
Right.
Yeah.
Why don't we
yeah,
get,
yeah.
Charlie, why don't we just
Yeah,
get number
okay,
4
why don't we-
and
yeah,
the other
yeah,
one?
okay,
So
yeah,
we'll just do the
okay.
first 3. High
Yeah,
Street,
no.
both sides, South Main Street, 400, High Street actually is not both sides anymore.
Right.
Wow. High Street's only gonna be 425 on the west, 75 on the east.
Yep.
Simpson Lane is gonna be north side from South Main Street to a point opposite of Nelson Lane, 450 feet. And Slab Ridge Road will be south side from a point 450 feet west of Payne Road, heading east 1,200 feet. Is that good?
Yeah.
Right.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to make those changes. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion to, we'll have no parking zones, as stated on High Street, Simpson Lane, Slappers Road.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Okay, discussion on the motion.
In the state
I'm
of-
sorry.
In the state of Massachusetts, I think Selectman Sullivan could comment, it is illegal to park a motorized vehicle on a sidewalk.
Right.
Correct. Motorized vehicles are parked on that sidewalk whenever there's an event.
Well, I, in front of St. Bernard's,
All the way down the street.
well, usually they're not, most of the time, in front of St. Bernard's.
Not directly in
No,
front,
okay,
all the way
but-
down the
oh,
road.
oh, you asked the question, I'm gonna try to answer it. The issue that I see basically is the sidewalk distance from, the lane north on South Main Street for about 150, 200 feet. People end up parking on that side. It's an issue that, you know.
It's a
you
sidewalk.
come up- Yes.
It's either a sidewalk or it's not a sidewalk. It may be
It
just a
should be,
paved area
they
that's
should
not
be,
a
it should be
sidewalk.
tagged, park, a point well taken, Mark, you know, you go by, you see it. you
I mean, we
give
can
the
put,
station.
we can put all the signs in the world up.
Yeah.
Okay, if we're not enforcing the laws that are on the books, there's no reason to put more signs up. All we're doing is wasting money on signs.
No one's
and
putting any more
creating
signs up,
confusion
Mike.
for the people.
Well, this isn't to put new signs up. This is already, what's already marked that we can't find, or when Selectman Sullivan researched, can't find the mechanism where it was put into effect to make those no parking. So those signs technically aren't legal signs until this is
Because they don't
passed.
have the approval of.
They don't have the approval from the
Right.
road.
But I would
officials.
certainly like to see, so the question is, if that sidewalk needs to be left open, why is the parking on the west side and not on the east side, where on the east side, there is no sidewalk that would be impeded?
Well, it's also no parking on the east side, 'cause you can't have both parking on both sides.
Right, but if you made it no parking on the west side, no parking, period.
Well,
Now what your argument is people are gonna have to cross the street.
but
in
it's
order.
also road alignment, Mark.
Correct.
Because as you're coming northbound on South Main Street, if you're going to now have to, if you're gonna have vehicles parked on the east side, the traffic's gonna have to jog over. If you've noticed, when you come up South Main Street, towards the lane, and then proceed up further, the road widens there.
does
And that's
widen.
why the parking was allowed there.
I agree with Mark's point, though. If people are parking on the sidewalk, it's a
Yeah.
violation of the law.
Right.
We should notify the chief that there might be a hot
No, I'm not saying we should go out next week and do it. I mean, maybe
I'm not saying that
somebody
either.
notifies the church, and when they have an
If-
event, they can notify the
if they
people that it won't be permitted.
Park on the
We're
side of the
not-
road, but
we're
don't
not
park on the
gonna hurt
sidewalk.
people.
I think that was your point. Don't be parking on the sidewalk.
The other reason, logically, why it doesn't make sense to have the parking on the same side of the event, is that a lot of times you have people migrating out between cars. They'll walk down from the event, and they'll migrate, if they were crossing the street in a crosswalk and walking down, they'd be more cognizant of what they wouldn't walk out into traffic. It's a
There's no
bad
sidewalk to
scenario.
walk on at all. You're walking on the street
Well,
side.
everybody's parked on the
On the
sidewalk.
hillside, so If we get them off the sidewalk, now they can actually walk down
Get
the
'em off the
sidewalk and
sidewalk,
get to their
get
cars.
'em off the sidewalk,
And to
maybe
your
I
point
can.
earlier about the handicap use, right?
You know, and as far as the gentleman mentioned, that there's a lot of handicap parking there. A handicapped person should not be forced to park in a handicapped spot. Maybe the handicapped person doesn't wanna be up in a handicapped spot where they wanna leave where everybody else does, and they don't wanna be trapped in a traffic jam. They wanna roll out to their car and hop in their car and speed away. You know, but I just, if we're gonna have sidewalks, they should be accessible. There's also some mention that there may be telephone poles which impede those sidewalks. We need to get a hold of, it's not N-Star, it's the telephone.
That's
Verizon, those are Verizon's poles. If those poles need to be moved, so the access, it's accessible. Because certainly, if people are parking on the sidewalk, they're walking in the street.
Right.
That's a pedestrian hazard. That's something we should leave those sidewalks so people can get out of their car, migrate to the sidewalk, and go to their event.
I agree.
All right, so we're working on that one anyway,
Yes.
okay.
But to Mark's point, though, that really doesn't matter with
No.
parking. It has more to do with enforcement of the laws that, like you said, are already on the books, we shouldn't be parking on the sidewalks. Anyone else? No? Okay, I have a motion made and seconded. We just finished discussion on the motion, can I have a vote? All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, ayes carry. Okay. Discuss approval of process temporary no parking signs posted by committees and boards. While we were talking about no parking areas, I thought it would be a good time to discuss the authority to allow for temporary parking issues. From time to time, we have events in town. We have to put up temporary no parking areas when that happens. It's my belief it should come in front of this board, have a discussion, and people from the community can have a say in, you know, where it is, when it is, how long it is, and the board should decide on that. I don't think it should be necessarily an arbitrary decision by a committee that may be only having the space once in a while, or once a year, or twice a year, or whatever. Some situations that come to mind is the Strawberry Festival, 4th of July celebrations, those type of things that currently we put up temporary no parking areas for, and it impacts neighbors, it impacts residents. So,
Do you know if they contact the police chief or the fire chief before they even put those out there, or is there like
the police chief's the one that puts them up. Whether he contacts the fire department directly on all events, I don't know. I can speak to the fireworks the last time, because I was asked to attend by the sergeant, I guess it was, that the chief put in charge. We discussed parking on the street. Now, this is only for street parking, obviously, temporary street parking. The fire chief was there, the police chief was there, and they did have a discussion. Later on, after that meeting, they called and told the police chief where they wanted to do it, and he just followed there, whatever they asked.
Well, in relation to the fireworks, there's been for years basically the same plan, parking plan, traffic plan, that's been put into effect. So, I don't know.
Well, this year actually wasn't. The entire upper part of the fireworks that would normally allows for parking for residents was cordoned off for no parking, and then was only given to, as parking permits to people that had, what do you call them? Vendors. So if you're selling something at the fair, you could park there, but residents in general couldn't.
Okay, I don't know, we need to get into this discussion right now on that, but, so, I don't, right now, for, two events that come to my mind that have had parking and traffic plans for a long time, the fireworks and the Robinson Estate,
Another one.
yard sale. And at those, the people from Robinson Estates and the fireworks situation, the fireworks committee and the police chief sit down and go over a plan, and those plans have worked. I'm sure there's complaints, there always are. But for the plan, it's been for years now. And so I don't know if a Board of Selectmen needs to get into the operations of an event like that.
Well, ultimately, that's where the authority sits, though, I think. So that was the question. Are we delegating an authority to people that don't necessarily have the authority to accept that delegation? And other things, I understand that it's currently working. I agree with you, it currently works, they've been doing it for years, but if something changes in the way when they want to lay things out and do things different, I think it would be nice to,
I mean, I think
the board to be able
nice
to,
have a.
and also have a meeting like this, and if there's some residents that have concerns that necessarily can't speak out to those concerns during it, they'd be able to speak out here.
I mean, communication's always nice. I mean, I just think, we, as a board, give the chief of police the authority to, operate the town safely in relation to laws and traffic controls and so forth. And, he's sat down with the committees in the past, I know, and I don't know if was putting another tier on here that is unnecessary. One of the things with the vendor things is, I know, I've helped out setting up vendor booths for the 4th of July. And if people go down and they park a car down at the park at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they go off to work and leave it there, that type of thing can get in the way of people who are there working to put part of the celebration on, and it interferes with them. I'm not gonna speak to the fireworks committee, their plans and their reasoning, but I see that is a little bit of a problem. That people who want to move a vehicle in to put a booth up can be blocked by people who have just parked their car there for the day, so they can come back to it at 7 o'clock at night or whatever it is. So I see where some of that blocking of parking can help the vendors out. They're helping to put part of the celebration on.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say one more thing, I'm not specifically pointing to the fireworks committee, I'm talking about
No,
all things. Anybody that
I'm
comes to
using-
town that wants to put on an event.
I'm just using that as an example.
Right. As far as that, yes, you're right, but there's also, we don't do the bonfire anymore. They stopped the bonfire a couple of years ago, so they converted all that to parking now. They're allowed to park on the field behind the thing, so there is other parking situations, but I'm talking about anybody that comes to town that wants to put on an event, that wants to put up temporary no parking signs. It just gives the board and the people a bite that, they're having their say where they're put and how long the duration, that type of thing.
All right, part of me agrees with Charlie, because I don't think that we need any more red tape. It gets to be convoluted. Yeah, you know what, you guys are worried about temporary parking. I'm worried about where there's snow removal times and parking bans. Like, that's something that I think that at some point we should also discuss. But, can people abuse the temporary no parking? I guess, but then they're not enforceable anyway. So,
Well,
if somebody had if Robinson Estates has their thing and somebody was not very friendly towards it, and they put a no parking in front, it's like, but I'd like to see a policy, maybe when they come in to fill out their thing, that they have to give us a plan of where their no parking signs are going to be. And then it can come before us or not, or just the police chief and the fire chief for safety.
Okay, I would certainly agree that we should develop some type of a policy for temporary parking, so in case somebody just decides, hey.
I'm not doing it.
Right, and I was looking more towards events, not necessarily somebody's having a block
No,
party
no.
and they want
No,
to block
no,
the
I'm not
street.
talking about that
I'm not
either.
talking about that, I'm talking about
I can
I'm talking about
license-sanctioned
events.
events.
Yeah, and I understand that too, but like say somebody comes in with an event,
The bike race.
right.
Yep.
Right, I mean, we
They
get
did
those.
a fundraiser up there too, up by there, and we put up temporary no parking signs for the fundraiser that they had for, no, it was same idea.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's just, okay,
No, I think that we should develop a policy. I think it should be attached to whatever they have to fill out. And they have to identify where the no parking signs are gonna be. And if they put up more, then they go against it and we do something, or, and, you know,
Well,
at least we have something to go by.
Right, yeah, I'm
So
fully.
why don't we come up with a policy and bring it forward for the next meeting, and then we'll attach it to whatever they have to fill out.
How about just because she's on vacation, it's cut off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. That's fine.
so make that as a motion.
I'll make that as a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded to develop a policy for temporary no parking signs. Any discussion on the motion?
Just try to have that for, like, the first week in September.
Yeah.
Whenever it's available, if chief's away, he's away. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Ayes carried. Discuss one-call system.
Okay, to date, we have 229 individuals that have signed up for the one-call system. One of the things we have noticed that we have 9 duplicates at this point, and multiple members of the single family, all enrolling in the program. While at this point, it really doesn't make a difference, but when we close in on the capacity of the 1,350, is that 600? 3,600. It's going to become a bigger issue, because at that point, we'll have to, I guess the question is whether we want to reduce the duplicates now and make that a policy, or do we want to let it continue until we're near capacity and then have to approach people after the fact that may have been getting notices for a longer period until we're up to that number.
I think we review it in 6 months and see where we're at. And if we're gonna do the one call reverse with the schools, I think in September, October, if we're gonna do it with that, we'll know more or less where we're gonna be, so we can actually review it at that time too.
The duplicates that are out there, same phones, or is it like same
I
address?
believe they're
Same address.
same address. They have different phones, they're getting.
I'm just wondering if we start cutting it now, you know, eliminating the duplicates, then there's no problem, and people can start to learn that they do one household or whatever. You know, letting it go for a while.
Could take 2 years to get up to that,
Right.
and those people are gonna be getting
Right.
the calls.
Yeah.
And then at the 2-year mark, we're running out of the ability to allow the people to join the
Instead
system.
of-
And now we gotta go back and say,
I don't
oh,
wanna
after 2
discourage
years.
people.
That's, my concern is discouraging people
I
from
don't wanna
signing up.
discourage people
If in
from
2
signing
years
up.
we actually reach the 3,600, we can
Right.
discuss options with to add
I'm
more
just
if we need to
thinking-
add more.
You know,
We're in the lowest tier plan, that's why we're at the 3,600.
Right.
The more people that know, the more people get the information, the better.
I'm just thinking that, trying
How
to
can
do
you,
it.
how can you restrict anybody from signing? In other words, if there's 10 people that all live in the same house and they all have a phone with a different phone number, those individuals all travel to a different place during the day. They're all entitled to be, they're just as entitled to be notified as any other individual. So how do you conscionably say, you get the call, you don't get the call, you get the call, you don't get the call, she gets the call? It's fundamentally not fair.
Well,
Either everybody who wants to sign up, who has a phone and a phone number. Now, obviously, if you have 2 phones, you can't sign up with a phone number in the same name, but how do you conscionably restrict anybody from signing up? I don't see how you do it legally either, because now you're not notifying someone.
We send things to people's homes, and the head of household's name, we don't send it to each individual
But that's
household
not an
member.
emergency, there's one call.
No, it's not this isn't an
This
emergency.
isn't, you got nothing to do
No.
with emergency.
This is the one-call system we put in at town meeting.
It will
to-
never be used for emergency.
This is
ever.
not, this isn't for emergency, this is for the calls to say informational meetings are
Right.
coming up. You know,
Okay,
there's gonna be a
so-
town meeting on such and such a date, so people are aware where, when, how
So the
things are going
system,
on.
so the system is
We still have a reverse
prohibited
911.
from being used for emergency use. that one call.
We have reverse 911 for emergency systems that we currently have. We already have it signed up. We go through same call system that the school uses.
I'm just saying, from a legal
Reverse 911
standpoint, if
is-
somebody's not notified and they're hurt,
Reverse 911 is its own system. Right.
you understand.
Yeah, we had that when there was somebody, a runaway last year. It did reverse 911 calls to notify the neighbors. This
Right.
isn't
So
to do with
it
that.
would- so it's prohibited from being used for that purpose.
It's not specifically prohibited, no,
Right,
but
well,
that's not the intent of it.
Right, but it's just because, from a legal standpoint, if somebody does suffer from not being notified, and they're with that, and an emergency call does go out on that system, there's a tremendous amount of liability on the town for that.
This wasn't designed for that.
Right,
We
no,
have
I
that.
understand, I understand what you're saying.
The reverse 911 is, that's what it's
Right.
for.
Right, I understand.
How many times you get the call, how many times does the person get a phone call?
15 times a year, I think is what our
15, so
plan
you can
is.
easily chew that up on silly messages, and then when the juicy ones come up,
Email.
say they're all out, they're all done.
Yeah, that's
like
not,
say-
that's not really what it's for.
And the emails are unlimited, so they get unlimited.
When we address it at town meeting, it's for
Like,
state
if we're gonna
elections,
vote on a
it's
sewer
for,
line or something, we want a phone call.
that would be on there,
Yeah.
correct. Right.
Right.
Okay, so what else do you want to know?
Oh, that was just.
Do you want to
basically
take
letting
any
you know
action, do you want to take any action this time, or do you want to review it in 6
No,
months?
I say
Review in
review
6
it in
months,
6 months.
check with
I
file.
don't wanna discourage people from signing up, so
Charlie,
we'll look at it in 6 months. If we're
Sure.
close,
I'll
then
entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we look at it in 6 months.
second.
Motion made and seconded, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Signed state primary warrant as submitted by town clerk Jacqueline Brown. Everybody had a chance to review it? Senators up this year, governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, treasurer and receiver general, auditor, representative in Congress, counselor, senator in general court, representative in general court, precinct 1, representative in general court, precinct 2 and 3, district attorney, clerks of courts, registrar of deeds, and county commissioners are all up this year.
Make a motion to approve as read.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Discuss approved request for Laura Ramsden to make regional school committee special municipal employee. So we spoke about this, I believe, at the last meeting.
Yeah, we were confused whether it's just her or the whole committee, so, yeah, no, it's the whole committee.
It's the whole committee. There is a little bit of a hiccup. Special municipal employee is not supposed to be a employee that receives compensation from the town, or, yeah, from the town. In Lakeville, they don't
Right.
pay their school committee members. In Freetown, we do.
Mhm.
So to make Freetown, and by association Lakeville, school committee special employees, that would be a violation of the special employee statute, where it says they're not supposed to be paid positions. So, I don't know
I
how
think we
the,
need to send it to Mark and have him review it.
I still raise the same concern I had before. Reading 238A, the chapter and section on conflict of interest, I don't see how this gets her around conflict of interest if her husband is a CEO of a company that's doing business with the school.
Yeah, I think we should send it to Mark.
Charlie, any,
That's fine. There's questions, and we can get the answer and go from there.
Right.
all right, can you forward that to Mark too? Discuss sign approval for exemption from a form for a special municipal employee Laura Ramsden to be placed on file with the clerk's office. We're gonna forward that to Mark Rich, the town attorney, to suss that out. Town administrator's report.
Just a couple things. One, I met with Wendy about 2 weeks ago. And we're going to be bringing forward a proposal to create a town energy committee, which basically looks at conservation measures throughout the community, buildings, LED lights, and other ways that we as a community can address some of the concerns we have regarding energy and how to, make the leap forward in terms of conserving energy and involving the community in that process. So we'll be coming forward next week, and we'll have, next meeting, we'll have a mission statement, we'll have a potential composition of the committee, and identifying some of the issues that the community is facing, maybe looking at how we can become a green community and take advantage of some of the money that's out there in grants for that purpose. I've also been working with Charlie as personnel chair regarding the creation of a safety committee, the purpose of which will be basically training and education of town employees relative to occupational hazards, particularly in light of the adoption of the new OSHA regulations that are going into effect in February of 2019. We have discussed in a little bit about the composition of that committee. The general feeling is it should be employees that are impacted in the individual offices in terms of the composition of the committee and seeking input from them in terms of how we make the workplace safer, how we can address some of the, in terms of training, some of the things we can do is teaching, better ways to handle our customers. There's a whole bunch of issues that can, not only, SAW safety, but also office training and things like that, for how to handle a fire extinguisher. All of those things are part of working in a work environment and providing the training so that people are educated as to how to, protect themselves and to work without harm. So I'm going to be coming forward with that at the next meeting also. The windows are in the library. I don't know if people have noticed that, but they have been put in. We stored the old windows in the library's basement. I'm attending the procurement classes, supplies and services at the end of September. That'll be the third class in the series, and I will then be state certified as a procurement officer. That's basically it at this point.
All right, thank you.
Board of Health.
Okay, review an award proposal from environmental engineers regarding issues at the highway department. I think we all got that in our packet.
I can talk to that.
Yep, go ahead.
Well, I am recording now, Gary Mendes.
Thank you. That was directed by the board to seek two proposals, and I did that. One is FS Engineers, Farouk, and Sadiq. He provided, what I basically did is I provided a verbal description of the types of services that we wanted. Basically being one, looking at a pile of sand sweeping / basin, catch basin material that has been combined into a pile, and doing some kind of an analysis of that material and determining if it is hazardous, and then identifying and outlining a program to remove it if it is, and if not, then to offer recommendations as to how we would get rid of that material. The second is looking at a patch of oil that was adjacent to the street grindings that were on the property, and also potentially looking at other, doing assessments on other potential issues that may exist on the property. We got two quotations in. One is in the amount of $2,250, and we also have a day rate if we should choose to expand the scope to other areas. The second is from a company that we currently do business, Woodwood and Curran, and I don't have a copy of that here. And that is a more, they made a proposal of $13,700, which includes the evaluation of the debris laboratory testing, for a total lump sum budget of $13,700. Once again, the same written, or verbal, I should say, description was explained to them as to the nature of the problem, and explaining to them the potential oil issue that is next to the street grinding, so, and addressing any potential other further issues that are outstanding on the site. And that would be at a daily rate. It would be my recommendation, just based on the two proposals, that the board make an appointment of FS Engineers as the consultant for this project.
Any questions from the board?
What is exactly, what was the scope to, you said it was to look at what's already on the scene, make
Yeah.
a determination, and then how to proceed with it?
Basically what I did is I told them about the pile of the sand, street sweepings, and the mix of the catch basin materials. I also described the road filings or road grindings, as well as some information we received regarding oil being spilled in the proximity of that, but also explain that there may be other potential issues that we could or may have on site and get an assessment of those that they so develop.
So basically, they're gonna do a site survey, they're gonna go see what's on the site, and then...
Initially, they're handing those two, if the board so directs, they can then, they can do that site analysis if the board wants them to, at an hourly rate, pursue that.
I have a question, please, when you're ready.
According to your email today, some of the stuff had been moved to other locations. So does that mean that the scope would change too to those other locations that these piles have been moved to?
I would say no, only because when they test that material that they use today, if it proves out to be hazardous, then we'd have a problem of removing that material from where it was put today. But if it is within some parameter of being acceptable and not hazardous, then we would adopt whatever recommendation that the consultant gives to us regarding getting rid of that material. Maybe to a landfill, maybe to continue using it as fill. It all depends on, you know, what comes back from the testing of those materials.
So if the pile's not there, and
Well,
there's
the
nothing...
pile is
Okay.
there now, it's still there. It's a pretty big pile. They did use some today, which I had expressly said that they shouldn't. That's where we're at.
So if there is contamination at pile A, which would be at the highway line, and then subsequently has been moved to other locations throughout town, then the possibility arises that those other places could be contaminated
Yes.
as well. That's
Well,
just-
material is contaminated material has been placed. I'm only aware of one situation
Okay.
that's affecting.
All right, do you have any questions?
I've read the regulation, well, it's not even regulations, actually, DEP. It's a policy. And the catch bait, according to their policy dated May 14, catch basin cleanings should not be mixed with street sweepings. I don't know that that was the policy before that date, and that's, you know, I don't know that we have to go and have these tested. I think the best thing to do would be is the ability to move them to a landfill, and the landfill, and we'll dispose them in a landfill as their DEP policy suggests. I think testing it it's a use that we don't have to go through. The regulations, the policy says that DEP does not regularly test catch basin cleanings unless there is some sign of contamination. And no one has told me anything about any contamination in these catch basin cleanings. And that's how I look at it. I mean, I think it's overkill.
Is it the catch basins? No, I'm not intimately familiar with them. That's why I thought it would be a good idea just to hire someone that is and go down and do the site survey. But isn't the catch basin cleanouts classified as solid waste in the state versus sand collected from, unless there's a spill or cause of contamination, sand collected from street sweepings isn't. It can be sieved and used as structural fill, is how I understand it. But like again, I didn't go directly back to DEP. I just read the DEP report we had a while ago.
Under the DEP policy, catch basin now, after their policy, is that it's after May 14th, it is definitely a solid waste. But it says that that solid waste can be disposed in a traditional landfill.
That's daily cover as long as the
Right.
landfill is accepting daily cover.
Right.
Right.
So, I mean,
I just wanna know if it is or if it isn't, and if it's not, and we spend X amount of dollars to ensure the safety of everybody that lives in that area, then that's $22.50 that I think is well served. If it comes back that it's not contaminated, and there's nothing further for us to discuss, other than ensuring that as we continue down the road, we take care of the stuff, quickly and in the right manner.
I have nothing
Right.
against that.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that,
Maybe too, he could also suggest that, you know, this is how we should store it in the future.
Right.
Put this stuff there, put this stuff here, make sure they don't get
right.
combined.
I have no issue with that. I'm just thinking that we're spending, even though it is $2,300 or what, that it's even by the DEP policy, it's not necessary. They would only suggest if there's something, if you come up with a bucket and a bucket full of cleanings and there's oil in it, okay, now they have an issue. And it might be, you know, you got the oil in this one, what's about the next catch basin down the system? I see that. But in the general run-of-the-mill thing, I don't see it.
And you're only talking about the catch basin cleanups in the
Right.
street, you're not talking about grindings that David alluded to? and
No.
Any oil that might be
No.
mixed with that or anything
I
like
mean,
that?
there probably is oil or oil sludge in the grindings. Grindings are basically oil, just asphalt. But, you know, I just think that we're spending money we don't need. But I don't have any issue with working to keep the street sweepings in proper way and keeping the catch basin cleanings separately and basically truck them off to a landfill as soon as they can. Basically, don't even bring them to the highway department, bring them right to a landfill.
Again, we have neighbors in that, and I don't wanna see this come back as contamination. I mean, that would be detrimental to the town. I'm hoping it's not. But I think that with the school nearby, with, other wells in the area, I think with, everything,
Here we go. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think that we owe it to the townspeople to ensure that if it comes back, we're positive or negative, which we want it to come back negative, and we're good. Then we have nothing else to discuss. But Charlie, if it comes back positive, then we're doing something wrong, and we need to fix it.
I don't know if you're testing the pavement grindings, it's gonna come back showing that there's not oil in it.
Well-
because there's definitely oil in it. I mean, grindings are petroleum product.
But as I thought, what David had said was, it was more, and this is why I asked the question, they're gonna do a site survey first to see if they even need to be tested. If it doesn't need to be tested, then should recommend it doesn't need to be tested, and we stop there. If he thinks it needs to be tested because something he sees as an expert engineer would lead him down that path, then we would be remiss to say, no, we don't need to test it, we'll just haul it off to a landfill and we'll stick it with them. That's why I asked the question several times. This is for a site survey, to go there and then get his legal opinion whether we should pursue testing, not pursue testing, segregate the material so it doesn't mix again, come up with a plan of how we should proceed in the future. If he goes there, in my opinion, if he goes there and he finds everything's copacetic, we're okay, or just haul it away and you're good to go, I'm fine with that. I mean, that's the easiest, quickest thing we can. I don't know if Crapo's accepting it, but we can haul it over to Crapo and we're good to go.
Good to hear that. Great.
I'm sure they're doing daily fill cover over there.
You also, I think, as far as I know, David, correct, I think DEP already knows about this, in part, right?
I haven't heard specifically from DEP. I know that there is a neighbor that does work at DEP that lives near the property, and he is aware of it.
So if we don't do anything, then we could have DEP come in and do it all. And then we'd be, or we can look like we're doing, taking a step in the right direction. I know.
I understand that.
I know.
But I'm just thinking where the cost of this for basically, we know what we have here, we know what the plan should be in the future, and I think go out and test this, come back, probably gonna come back negative.
If they even have to go to that step.
Right. All right. Do you have a motion from the board?
I'll make a motion to have FS Engineering go and do a site assessment and determine what his needs are for the future.
At the 2250,
At the-
2,250.
At the cap of 2002, because that includes testing. If he doesn't need testing,
Then we don't spend it.
then we don't spend it.
Do I have a second? You can second it for discussion.
I'll second it for discussion.
All right. Any other discussion?
Absolutely.
Okay. Go ahead.
You just said we know what we have here, so there's no need to do a survey or
It's
test.
asphalt.
We don't know what we have here because we're not testing it.
No.
So you don't know what you have here. And the other problem is, what has historically been done with it before this? You're saying, okay, from May on, here's the policy. Fine, that policy may not have been in fact enacted prior to May. That's fine, so you weren't necessarily outside of the policy if you were disposing of it in irresponsible ways. But maybe the people, if any of it comes back contaminated, and the people who have been exposed to it would like to know that they've been exposed to it because it was used in their property for fill, or whatever it may be.
Well, I have checked with a number of different highway departments, and in the past, similar to what we have done here, if a person wanted some fill, they would put it there. Most of the time, we've used this, the street sweeping. This is street sweepings. Half of that pile is pine needle and leaf and twigs. Okay, about half of the pile. The rest is sand that's been put down in the street.
So you know that when they collect all
Okay,
this,
wait,
they
ma'am,
filter it like they're supposed to?
You asked me, and now I'm
Well,
explaining.
you're telling me what's in it.
No.
So they filtered it out. I'm asking.
No.
Partly,
You asked me
sorry.
a question,
Okay,
I wanted to answer it,
okay,
now you.
I'm listening.
So, for years, this has been used. In the policy, they still allow for it to be used basically the same way that we've been using now. Basically, they want you to have a permit from that. That's the street sweepings. That is one issue. The other issue is the material that is ground up in paving projects. It is in a pile. There apparently has been oil sludge dumped on that pile. Now, oil is part of asphalt. That is my, that asphalt has gone in, paved streets in town, filled in potholes, that type of thing. So, my issue is that we know what we have, we know how we're gonna get rid of it, now, how we'll probably do it in the future, and I don't see that it's necessary to test these piles, because what we think is in there is not gonna be a hazard, okay? Oil is part of the shavings, sand is street sweepings in basically rural area. It's a material they're gonna use, not, the landfill's gonna use it to cover in their landfill. And then they'll grow grass on it. So I just think that it is not necessary to spend this money. That's my
Okay.
opinion.
My part B question was that all of this material has been separated and filtered so that the oil and any other debris that's considered toxic has been removed from it. Because when you just said the oil is then put into the asphalt and put back into the street to fill potholes. Then the street sweeper comes along and sweeps stuff up. And then that stuff comes back up and ends up in that same debris from the material from the street. So have we been following the correct process all along to separate those things?
I don't know.
If not, then it's been dumped places.
Yes, it has, but before, and this is a policy, ma'am, not a regulation, not a CMI, it's a policy.
I know, I have
And
it.
the policy says that before the 14th, we don't know what their policy was before. It hasn't been, it was so important that they haven't changed it in over 20 years, okay? And I don't, this is just like asphalt that you pave a street on. This is the sand that they put down when they mix with salt. It's the sand that gets swept up in the sweepers. That now is gonna be taken to a landfill, okay? Which is in relation to their policy. So we're following their policy now. We're making sure of that.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that, but it still begs the question of what we've done in the past. Do those people deserve to know what might be in the fill that was used to fill their yard, the fill that was used to line the playground that the kids play on, the fill that was used to backfill cranberry bogs? Do those people have the right to know what was in that? I think they do.
Well,
I called the DEP, and they said there is...
It's not your turn.
Oh, okay.
Hold on, because she's still,
I understand.
okay.
Well, I feel if I'm going and I'm getting street sweepings, I know what I'm doing as a property owner, okay? And I don't think that that's gonna change anything now. So that's,
Okay.
Okay, Gary?
All right, I called the DEP, and I'm not against testing anything, because you better know, but they said there is no policies against street sweepings. They pretty much laughed at me, and they allow grindings to be buried wherever you want. There is no policy at all on both items.
And no, I think the question was the catch basin cleanup.
And for the street sweeping purpose,
No, catch basin
I
cleanup.
mean, the street sweepings, every time it rains, anything that's in the street sweepings is going off in everybody's yard. So all these trucks that are allowed to roll through town are potentially contaminating everybody's yards. The street sweepings are done usually in the summertime when everything dry.
Right after,
So-
yeah, after the winter, because we put sand down in the winter.
Yeah, there is no contamination in average street sweepings.
For structural fill as long as it's filtered, but I don't think you can on,
And grindings are allowed to be buried.
I don't
Call the
think,
DEP, they'll tell you
I don't
themselves.
think you can on solid waste, which is the catch basin cleanups.
All right, but I'm just
So
worried that
that's
we're
what-
like trying to
And if you're mixing solids, if
dream
you're
up
mixing,
ideas how we can get a water line in maybe?
Nope,
no, actually.
nope, not at all.
As somebody that lives in
I feel relieved.
that area, I would be concerned if I was you to know what was in there yourself, but I'm sorry, it's not,
No,
I
that's fine.
apologize, I was
My
just
well
talking
is-
to
My well
Gary.
is 15 feet from the road.
That's my
If-
concern.
If the street sweepings are already filtered off into the ground, so it's
It's
done.
not the street
It's over.
sweepings, I think it's the catch basin cleanouts, that's the issue, that's what's
Well, they should put that in a separate pile.
You're absolutely right.
And John Mello, I think, agreed to remove them for $9,300.
And I think that might be what we end up doing.
Yeah.
I just
And
wanna
they're
make
gonna
sure
end up going
that's,
in everybody's yard anyway.
Yeah,
so-
'cause
That's
it's
where
gonna
it's-
put it through his room anyway, so.
well, it should go to, it has to go to, as Charlie alluded to, it has to go to a place that accepts it,
He
and
will.
then for daily fill.
Did you
We'll get a
guys
couple.
ever think of recycling the sand to
I did, Gary, but I'll tell you,
It's already mashed up.
well, like I said, it's 50% pine needles, twigs, leaves, and so forth. So to run
You
it
could run it
through,
through a screener.
well, it becomes labor intensive
Mhm.
to have it's the cost, you know, worth to separate,
The wrappers, the cigarette
right,
butts.
yeah, and then put it back in to the salt shed.
But every time it rains, whatever's on the road is in everybody's yard anyway. So if maybe we stop trucks from coming in through town, we might have a better chance.
We can try.
I got a picture of a nice oil spill over there next to, heading into a property in Asona.
Go ahead.
Mr. Sullivan alluded to the fact that the road grindings, there's a pile of road grindings that exist, and oil sludge was dumped into that, is what you alluded? Okay, so somebody came up with a bright idea that we get some oil to get rid of, so go dump it in the grindings. That's a problem.
Well,
Okay.
I agree.
I'm not gonna argue the science here tonight, that's a problem. If we are not separating the catch basins are basically the filters for the roadways. Everything that lands in a roadway either goes onto an individual's property and dries on a driveway or is filtered through the ground. What goes into the catch basins is the high-capacity water flow areas. That carries all the contaminants into the bottom of the catch basin. It sits there and accumulates. You have a concentration. If we're mixing that with street sweeping, we're stupid. Stupid. It really is. And I agree with the selectwoman and with you that we should test it. It's $2,250. If it turns up dirty, it turns up dirty. It comes back to the highway department's gotta be diligent. I used to, when I sweep my driveway, I bring it to the highway department. I don't want that crap in my backyard. If I sweep up, if the town doesn't get in front of my place, I put it in a machine and I take it to the highway department, because I don't want the street sweepings in my yard. If the town can't get to it, you know, I just think if we're pulling it out of the catch basin, it comes out of the catch basin wet, goes into a truck, that truck should never come back to the highway department loaded from here on out. I mean, I think if you guys vote to test it, it's money well spent. If it comes back negative, we got lucky, really lucky.
When's the testing gonna take place, and who's gonna be monitoring, so somebody doesn't like set something up for?
We're doing it the right way now, correct?
I don't know, the engineer hasn't been there yet. so
No, I mean, we're doing it the
I
right
don't
way,
know if
we're
it's
not
gonna-
commingling
know
it
if it's
You
anymore.
don't know.
I mean, the highway department,
He's
it's
elected
right down the
official.
road.
He's an elected official that runs that department. We don't
Who
have.
cleans the catch basins? Does the town clean the catch basins? They hire us, they hire some.
Can the town manager send a
They have
letter,
one- you guys have your
an
own-
urgent letter to the highway
What's
superintendent
that, 10 in
notifying
town?
him
He's been in
of
contact
what's
with
going on?
And our concern.
Is it really?
And if he, you know, I mean, because ultimately, if he mishandles that product, he is going to potentially incur a great expense to the townspeople.
You should also not be allowed to make any modifications to cover up anything either.
I think it's out in the public, I don't think it'll be.
We don't
Again,
know what's going on behind
it's not my,
Behind bars.
Well, I'm there all the time, and I'll tell you, there's nothing getting hidden.
We wanna, well, we'll take a vote. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
just to Wendy's point real quick, that we're not trying to, he's an elected official, so we can't tell him what to do, what not to do. That's his department, he's an elected official. So we have a concern, a complaint that was filed with us that we're trying to now suss out and see if it's true, for lack of a better word, or if it's not true. And I'm not an engineer, Lisa's not an engineer, Charlie's not an engineer. So, in my opinion, that's why we hire an engineer. He goes and looks at it and says, don't worry about it, everything he's doing is right.
Hopefully as soon as possible.
Or, yes, there's an issue, to Mark's point, we gotta separate these, and this is how you're gonna do it from now on going forward. Take that stuff and get rid of it. Great.
The DEP policy, it's not regulation, it's policy.
Policy.
Yes. But it's
Is
different.
to segregate the two materials. So if he violates policy, there's no ramifications.
Correct.
Other
It's
than,
best practices.
other than making it known to the townspeople that he's violating policy and potentially costing us money. He does a great job, don't get me wrong, I mean, in wintertime, we've got the best roads in the state, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
But, you know, I mean, this isn't really hard to do. Instead of one big pile, you make two little piles, I mean,
And maybe you should put a set of locked gates over there so nobody can go in and just do what they please.
We have diligent neighbors that live right there.
I
Keep
live
an eye
right
on-
over there, I
I
keep
know
an
you
eye
do,
on
that's why I
I
said.
keep an eye on a lot of things.
There you go.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by aye.
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 Is this the motion to have the site survey?
Survey,
Yes,
they're gonna
for
go through.
$2,250.
F&S engineering.
Yes.
All right, personnel board. You got a thing, Charlie?
Do you want that?
You can have my
Okay,
iPad if you
first
want.
of all, there's a certificate of appointment for Paula Byers, become a member of the council, cultural council, with a term to expire May 21 of 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Second is a certificate of appointment to Timothy McIntosh, to be appointed temporary temporary part-time records clerk for the building police subcommittee, expiration date June 30th, 2019.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All, motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
The next is a change of status form for Brittany Norman,
Normandin.
Norman, yes, I was gonna say this. Change of status. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to change it from 1476 to 1659.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
The second is a status, the next one is a status change for Chelsea.
Hester.
Is that because I can't
Hester.
say- Hester, okay, that's an R, you're right. To change her status from library technician 1476 to 1659. Right.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is this change of status for Alicia Ferris, I believe is
I think it's freer.
Freer, okay, Freer. For the finance committee, senior clerk.
Make a motion to approve.
That's a new hire for 1630, that's the second.
We don't have a certificate of appointment there. Ally, do we have an assistant?
Yeah, it should be there. If not there, it should be in your signature then.
Okay. Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
The next, John Souza Santos will be,
Actually, the candidate withdrew.
okay. The next is a request to appoint Mary Ferret Kellogg, the assistant health agent.
She'll be the backup health agent when Derek's out, so we've met her before.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that closes that out. As far as
Reappointment of board.
okay, well, I don't have the paperwork on that.
Ally, you have reappointment of board member for tax increment finance board, regional school committee.
Yes, you have to discuss it.
Which members are
I don't think, there's nothing in the packet.
Yeah, you have to discuss it. You wanted to discuss it? You want to reappoint, you're appointed to.
Oh. This is a reorganization of the Board of Selectmen. I raised to the town administrator that I don't know, if I choose not to run for selectman again next year, I don't think it'd be fair to the remaining board members if I negotiate in the regional FinCom, not negotiate, but represent the board in the regional FinCom. I will no longer be in the office when it takes effect. The remaining members would still be here, so I didn't think it would be fair to them for me to sit on the regional school finance committee any longer, and we should
Sorry,
represent
Charlie.
Yeah.
another candidate.
Yeah, you're
Choose
bailing,
that
you're bailing, that's what it is.
You-
Just
Wasn't
say
that a commercial? Sorry, Charlie.
Yeah.
Yes.
I did it for
You're
2 years,
bailing.
Charlie, you're up next.
Uh,
No, that seriously was, just to keep maintain continuity, I would have stayed.
I understand, Bob.
But if I'm out in April and you guys aren't gonna be voting on that budget till June,
I understand.
you're gonna get stuck with something that you didn't negotiate, well, not
I
negotiate, but
understand.
discuss.
All right, I will,
He reluctantly says yes.
I reluctantly take on the responsibilities of Freetown
You
finance.
notice all these are what I get stuck with when Paul was leaving.
Right,
Tax increment board. Currently, who's on the tax increment board currently?
It's usually the chairman.
It's a chair.
So it'll actually fold over to the next chair anyhow, so we don't really need to realign that. Same thing with Bristol County, representative to the Bristol County Commissioners for school budgets for Bristol Aggie. This probably should be the same person as the regional school
Yeah.
finance committee.
Great idea, huh?
And CERTA, I'm still on CERTA. Really, there's no need for us to be on CERTA because they still won't give us bus service.
Well, they come to town line. Okay.
Yeah, they'll come to the town line. So I'll stay on that until I no longer am a member of the board.
The Bristol County rep though, is David still the
Actually,
backup?
No,
No.
only a selectman can be.
Okay.
yeah, because remember I took the vote.
Oh, that's
yeah.
right, and that was.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Sorry.
You think I was the reason why there wasn't a quota?
Yeah.
Long story. So, do I have a motion to appoint Charlie as the regional school finance committee member and representative and the Bristol County representative?
Should I say happily or no? All right, I begrudgingly say yes.
I'll second that motion. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye. New business. Dates for upcoming Board of Selectmen's meeting, Monday, August 20th, September 4th, September 17th, October 1st, and October 15th.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Because I know you're wrapping up here. Are you going to address the invoice that's outstanding for the printer?
It's not on this agenda, so no.
Yeah, we voted to pay for it, though. Why hasn't it been done
We
already?
voted to pay for 2019 fiscal year, yes.
The flyers, we,
2019 fiscal year, not 2018.
oh, so you're gonna make them wait for a couple of grand.
So you're not going to pay it?
It's not on the agenda, I can't discuss it.
Well, let's put it on the agenda for next select board meeting, then. So we gotta get this wrapped up.
Now, why isn't it on the agenda? It was addressed to you guys.
It was voted on the last meeting to not put it on the warrant, and it was not put on the warrant to be signed. It's not on this agenda, so we can't discuss it.
We're gonna get it on the agenda next select board meeting?
I don't know if that's the case now.
All right.
Executive session, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the town hall, library, highway, union, Freetown firefighters union, signal operators, and Freetown police union, because an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares. This chair does so declare. And Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on litigation positions of the public body, and this chair does so declare. Excel Recycling LLC versus the town of Freetown, and we will not be returning into open session. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Sullivan?
Aye.
Ms. Pacheco?
Yes.
Mr. Joes, yes. Members have been polled. We are in executive session.